Hello, my name is Graham Keegan, and what I'm going to talk to you about today is what I wish I knew 5 years ago, and then I could have avoided type 2 diabetes. So hopefully this will be of help to you if you're on that path. The crucial thing, which will come out through the video, is the fact that fats are really important to us in our diet, for a healthy diet. And the problem type of food for us is carbohydrate. Every time it's a real problem. I can talk to you about this because, as I've just said, I've had type 2 diabetes and got myself out of it, and so I've experimented on myself and know what I have to do, therefore what I can help you with in terms of losing weight and getting yourself into remission. It is very doable. It is very doable, but takes some effort. But there's a strict diet and exercise and lifestyle regime you have to follow. Anyway, without further ado, let's get on with this. There are 3 macronutrients that we eat in our diet, and every food is either a carbohydrate, a protein, or a fat. And how our body deals with them is very different, and this is the crucial point, and this is how we then deal with insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, etc. And where we're going to get to in today's video is this end point, that what we want to have is a diet that is high in fat, moderate in protein, and low in carbohydrate. And if you're trying to lose weight, it needs to be very low in carbohydrate. If you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, it needs to be very, very low in carbohydrate. But that's the game plan, if you like. That's the strategy. That's what we do. High fat, medium protein, low carbohydrate. Because what we're suffering now in this world, and this is across the world, not just in Western societies, is that there's an onslaught of carbohydrates in our diet. The shops are just full of them, full of carbohydrates, and our bodies can't deal with it. Our bodies can't deal with this onslaught of carbohydrate, and one of the symptoms of this is the fact it makes us fat, which then becomes insulin resistant, diabetic, and unfortunately, through the inflammation it causes, it can become cancer as well. So this is a serious issue we need to deal with. And it's not just a small number of people who have it. I've been looking at figures recently which show that in the United States, so there's 330 million people in the United States, some 50% of adults in the United States are either pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetics. And then a further amount of people, probably about 15-20% of people who are not pre-diabetic or diabetic, are already insulin resistant, even though they may be fine. They're not obese or in any way, they may be in the normal range, because we're eating just far too much carbohydrate, and it's causing this problem for us. And I think it's worth remembering that if we think back to our hunter-gatherer ancestors, they would have been, there was practically no insulin resistance or diabetes as far as we know, because they were they had lean lifestyles with very low amounts of carbohydrate and lived on protein primarily and fat, and probably were in dietary states of what they call ketosis, because they had so little carbohydrate. It's worth remembering that. And also early medics who went out to live with tribal communities in Africa and Australia, and up with the Inuits up in North America, they were writing, this is from the 1920s, 1930s, they're writing back saying, well, these tribal people had lots of illnesses, lots of diseases, but what they didn't have was cancer. So I think that's a pretty clear indication to us that there's a lifestyle, diet, exercise issue in Western society. So let's deal with carbs. There are 3 types of carbohydrate. There's whole carbohydrates. This is whole grains, which people talk about. There's refined carbohydrates, which is white flour or white rice, where the goodness has been extracted from it, so you've just got the white flour left. And then there's sugars as well. And those are the three groups. They all contain sugar. And what the body does, it converts the sugar to glucose, which causes the sugar in the blood to rise, which then causes insulin release as it tries to deal with that extra sugar in the bloodstream to push it in to the cells. But of course, insulin resistance happens when you're continually eating too much carbohydrate and the cells no longer respond to the insulin. So yet more insulin is produced, higher and higher amounts. Now this can go on for years and years, but then eventually, if the diet doesn't change, then the insulin no longer works effectively and the blood sugar rises and you then have diabetes. Now with carbohydrates, the important thing is that they make us hungry. They make us want to eat more food. And to the point where some of them, like wheat, and I have a thing about wheat, is actually addictive to us. And so it's a real problem. So we eat more and more of it. There's no nutrition in carbs that our body cannot get elsewhere. So we don't need them. We don't need them. Whole grain breads, which we are told are really very healthy for us, typically have refined carbohydrates, white flour in them as well, which has a very fast release of sugar into the bloodstream. And but of course we're told that from these whole grain breads and things you get vital fibre for the body, for the microbiome. Yes, you do, but you can get that all important fibre from plenty of other sources like leafy green vegetables. And remember also that starchy vegetables like potato are full of carbohydrates. So next macronutrient is protein. I won't talk much about protein today, but that's not the focus of this video. But what happens with protein, it's broken down to essential building blocks, amino acids by the body, and excess protein is converted to glucose, just as carbohydrate is. So yes, it causes the insulin to spike, but not very much, and not as much as carbohydrate by any means. And finally, we have fat. Fat has a very bad reputation, and this goes right back to the 1950s and 1960s with an American scientist called Ansel Keys. We won't go into what he had to say, but he basically persuaded the world that fat was the problem. And he's been proved wrong, absolutely wrong. But we still have the hangover effects today. You go through the average supermarket aisle, so many things are low in fat or whatever. And of course, they're replacing the fat with sugar. There's nothing wrong with fat, just the opposite. Because it doesn't cause heart disease, it doesn't raise cholesterol, and it doesn't make us fat. It has a really bad reputation, and just undeservedly so. So importantly with fat, it doesn't cause our blood sugar to spike. So there's no insulin spike. It's stored as fat in the body. Now, it has a lot more calories in it, gram per gram, than carbohydrate, over twice as many calories per gram. So you can't just get rid of carbohydrate in tons of fat. You've got to eat a moderate amount of it. But the very good thing about it is that it actually makes you feel full as well. So you don't want to eat vast amounts of it. With a typical meal full of carbohydrate, you feel absolutely stuffed shortly after eating it. Then an hour or so later, you're hungry again. That's not the case with fats, just the opposite. And this is partly because of the nature of fat itself, but also the body digests it very slowly, which is good. So let's talk about fats and what actually sort of fats you can eat. Well, I've got a list of them here. Nuts, not nuts covered in salt or whatever spicy coating, but just plain nuts. Almonds, walnuts, cashews are all very good for you. Oily fish, salmon, mackerel, tuna, sardines, These are all really good for you because they're full of that terrific omega-3 fatty acid as well. They're really good. Olive oil is very good. Probably best not to cook with it, but it changes its composition, chemical composition at really high temperatures. So best to drizzle over salads, use at room temperature. Avocados are very good. Seeds, chia seed, flax seeds, sunflower seeds, eggs, great source of fat and protein. Cheese likewise, and nut butters like peanut butter. Get types of these things which don't have additives in them. Now, what surprises me is that here in the UK, the NHS is still advising that over a third of what we eat every day should be carbohydrate. And in fact, they're saying that over 50% of our energy we take in every day should be carbohydrate. Well, yeah, okay. I'm not a scientist. I just know what worked for me, and what's made me feel very healthy is cutting right down on the carbohydrate and dealing with my type 2 diabetes by doing just that. So I hope the advice changes at some stage. It needs to. So what have I learnt? I'm going to give you 5 things which I've learnt over the last few years. Eat fats. Yeah, they're really good for you. They taste good as well. Cut right down on carbohydrates, particularly wheat. Wheat is a big problem. I'm going to do a separate video just on wheat and what the problem it is. It's one to avoid. And if you do nothing else in this video, just cut out the wheat as best you can. Now, it's easy to say, but it's in everything. But do your best. Avoid processed foods because they're typically packed full of sugar and refined flour. Wheat again. Avoid light and low-fat foods because they take the fat out, but they think that's what they should be doing, going back to the 1960s. And what they replace it with? Typically sugar. That's what they replace it with. And eat natural foods. Try and eat foods without labels. That's the best thing to do. So, okay, to make it very simple and, if you like, uncomplicated, and something which we can all remember, I suggest what you do is you minimise 3 things. Sugar, grains, and also potato. Sugar, grains, potato. But you see, all those 3 things are in so many things. Whatever restaurant you go into, takeaway you go into, going through a supermarket, they're there everywhere. But they're the 3 things to try to minimise. Cut them out completely, great. But you really struggle. Just minimise. I do my best to minimise them. And I'm going to give you just a guideline as well here. And what I would say is this: is that to eat food fish from the sea, food grown in the ground, or food fed on food grown in the ground. All those will be natural foods, and obviously avoid those 3 things: sugar, grains, and potato. Okay. Every Monday, I have a live event on Zoom covering different diabetic issues. It's at 6 p.m. UK time and lasts for 30 or 40 minutes. You can ask me any questions. You can ask questions on that, and you're very welcome along. I'm going to put a link to this live event, and as I say, it's every Monday, in the notes, the comments below. Right, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. I wish you good health. Talk to you again soon.